And we are live once again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Me and Ryan are back after a almost 4-month break to discuss Survivor Season 45, preview it, break down the cast as we have the season starting on Wednesday, which we're both extremely excited about. It's been a while, Ryan. How are you?
Dylan, I am doing great. Always great to have that Survivor itch get scratched as you leave the off season and start the on season, as it were. I'm really looking forward to Wednesday, looking forward to seeing this new cast. What do the 90-minute episodes have in store? Just ready to be back.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. 90-minute episodes this season. And definitely, some new things that are going to be added. So excited for that. Again, 90-minute episodes. We've not seen this. I think a lot of the complaints with the 26-day seasons in the new era so far has been that, the game's at such a fast pace. We aren't seeing a lot of, we're not getting to know the players as much. That's basically the biggest complaint. Obviously, you would think, I don't want to jinx it, but with a 90-minute episodes, you would think that is something that will be addressed. So I think everybody is looking forward to 90-minute episodes and, more Survivor this season.
Yeah, and without getting into specifics, because I know Dylan and some others don't want to know as little as possible heading into the season, there was a Redmond Survivor article that basically, without spoilers, said very simply, if you're an old school fan, you can expect to see some things that you'll like. So there was one or two teases in the 45 trailer at the 44 finale. There was something recent on Twitter that's going to be happening this season. So I think if you, like Dylan just said, if you're looking forward to meeting the cast more, or you're trying to see some, things from back in the day, maybe you'll get excited about that. But I'm really hoping they take advantage, like you mentioned, of the full 90 minutes.
Yep. And yeah, I'm excited, and just wanted to remind everyone before we get started, smash that like button. Really helps us out. You could follow us Twitter at Soul Survivor Pod. Always a good time to follow us on Twitter for us to be firing off some takes there. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so be sure to do that. And let's hop right into it, Ryan. We're going to go through the cast bio like we normally do. And like always, ask some questions if you're watching in the comments, or you could, if you're watching late and not live, you could drop some comments in the comment section, not of the live stream, but of the actual video. So let's get right to it. And again, going through the cast bios here from Entertainment Weekly. So just going in that order for those that are not actually watching, we have the screen share up here. But if you're just listening, that's the order that we picked. So here we go. Austin, to dive into him, he is 26 years old, originally from San Jose, California, now lives in Chicago, Illinois as a grad student, describes himself as ambitious, sweet, and clumsy. Says he is confident he could win and wants to play Survivor because, $1 million and winning Survivor would really help with his 6-figure student debt. He's in love with the game, wants to duke it out with people, and everything's on the line, and prove to himself that he has what it takes. He, describes himself as somebody who, was a shy and quiet kid growing up, had mild Tourette's, was extremely self-conscious, had terrible acne, had to wear a headgear with braces. So he says he worked hard for years to build himself up and lived through the entire introversion, extroversion spectrum. He says he feels like that experience made him more of an empathetic person. And he says he identifies most with Owen. But he thinks he'll play most like Jay and Wendell because their games revolved around forming genuine connections that led people to keep them in the game, even though they were huge threats. And then, I think I don't want to go too much through and just basically read the whole thing, but those are definitely some important points. And I have a lot of takeaways from this, Ryan. What are your thoughts on Austin?
Yeah, I got great vibes from Austin. I think one thing that I look for, and I say this for all our cast assessments, is that when I watch their video, do I find myself kind of smiling when I hear them talk? I think, people that have that captivating energy will always pretty much do well in the game, especially in the new era where a social game is very, very highly valued. I found myself smiling at a lot of Austin's answers. He just seemed kind of likable coming through the screen. And a couple other people felt the same way about him too. I said to Dylan before the podcast that upon listening to some of Mike Bloom's interviews, he asked them, who did you get, without speaking, who did you get good first impressions from, and who did you get some red flags from? And Austin got a couple people, such as Drew and Sabaya, both said they would like to possibly work with Austin. Drew and Austin are both going to be on the Red Tribe, so that's a potential connection there. And I think the Owen connection, or the Owen mention from him, is interesting. He also mentions Jay and Wendell. I was going to say kind of feels like he could be a Jay, or maybe even like a Devin Pinto 2.0, because he was like, many people are maybe going to see me kind of as like a modern day Wu Huang, but I feel like he has the strategic elements to him as well as the physical and social parts. So he could be like that Jay, Owen, or Devin well-rounded player. So I do have pretty good hopes for Austin heading into the season.
Yeah, good vibes here. I like, when somebody says that they've been through it, like kind of like, he had like a lot of things growing up to the point where I feel like that like experience almost, so like going through all that would like help him in a social type game like this. Like he says, he's worked hard for years to build himself up and lived through the entire introversion extroversion spectrum. Look, again, these are things that could only help you socially going forward. I feel like if you had to deal with that growing up, like you've probably dealt with it all. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he's found himself in tough situations in his past to the point where I think he'll, this is the type of game that he could potentially thrive in. I thought the Owen comparison was interesting because like Owen's like the type of player that we all kind of pegged as being good before the season started, and then he just kind of ended up on the wrong side of like every vote and always in the wrong situation. But if Owen maybe ended up on a different tribe, maybe his journey ended completely different. So maybe if Austin's on the right tribe, it could work out. But yeah, interesting note here before we move on to the next. He says he owns the world record for the most nuts thrown and caught in a can on the head in 1 minute. The original record was 37. He got 93. So could be a challenge beast Austin coming through as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, some of these challenges where they have like the carnival games, they have like the thing where you do it all with your feet, the weird types of challenges. I mean, I think Austin could be a jack of all trades, honestly.
Should be interesting to see. So we have Dee as our next contestant that we are going to talk about. She's also 26, originally from Havana, Cuba, currently lives in Miami, Florida, and is an entrepreneur. Describes herself as fiery, wildly enthusiastic, and empathetic. She wants to be a part of Survivor, because she can't give one answer. She wants her family to be set. She said her parents left their familiarity behind in Cuba so that she could fulfill her dreams. And she wants to live a rare life surrounded by rare individuals. And she cannot do that unless she places herself in situations where she doesn't belong, like on Survivor. She wants that immigrant kid watching the show to know that the mind is powerful beyond measure. You can do more than you think. She started her own business at 23, which she feels like has prepared her for the game. Learned how to turn an idea into reality, navigate hardships when finances were uncertain, and become a better business partner. She thinks this will help her socially and strategically. She identifies most with Jesse. And she says the reason why is because family above all else. And she says like she'll play the game like Tony. Dude was a lot of fun to watch and was the ultimate persuader. Before we even get into more of D, I just want to point out that as if you guys have watched this podcast in the past, you know that one of my biggest pet peeves.
That's your pet peeve.
It is one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's funny because we're coming up on the pet peeve section right here. One of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody in these cast bios says they're going to play the game like Tony. No, you are not. So I think that like in a game like Survivor, where social awareness and self-awareness is such a huge aspect of it, saying you're going to play the game like Tony is immediately like a negative to me in terms of self-awareness. But anyway, if there's anything else interesting here, seems like she's pretty athletic. She does CrossFit, running, and then she says she ran a full marathon. So definitely could expect somebody who is athletic here. And when I first went through this was a funny story. She says she's not a college graduate. 5 years later, and her family still thinks she's had her bachelor's. She did shake the hand of the president of her school, but 6 months into waiting for her diploma, she found out she failed a class by 1 letter grade, and I guess she never told her family and never went back to finish that class. So interesting. But Ryan, what are your thoughts here?
Could you imagine being I can't even imagine my mom's reaction if that happened. But yeah, no, imagine that your parents thinking you have a degree. I think you bring up a good point about the self-awareness. Like, obviously, could she play like similar to Tony? She could, but like you said, the odds are extremely low. I think that self-awareness is pretty key. I mean, honestly, if you ask me, who do I think I'll play like, or who am I the most like? I'm clearly gonna say like Adam Klein. I feel like that's like not a very easy answer for me, but for better for worse. But no, D. I think D. Obviously, she describes herself as enthusiastic and empathetic. I think if she can do that in a tribe of 6, maybe she could be pretty well positioned. It's funny, she mentions how she has some of that sales experience as an entrepreneur. And so it's funny that she mentions Jesse, because I feel like Cody would target her for that salesman type of experience like we saw in 43. The interesting thing was that she got some good vibes from Bruce. A couple people got some good vibes from Bruce, obviously, from what they saw in 44. Very limited. But the interesting thing, Dylan, is that she got some red flags from Drew, and Drew and her are both on the red tribe with Austin. Maybe that's because she sees herself as more enthusiastic and extroverted, and she kind of took him to be a bit more introverted. I think she wants to work with people that have a similar game to her. So I think it'll be interesting to see how her and Drew coexist on this tribe. And yeah, no, I think she's someone that I feel like has that potential, not to go back to 43, but only because she mentioned Jesse. It's almost like that thing with Justine, where it's like, I could see D going very far, but I could also see something going wrong for her and her getting clipped early through some unfortunate circumstance. But I'm hopeful for D. Hopefully she can really, draw upon those soft skills, so to say.
Yep, we will find out on Wednesday. So next player we have here to talk about is Brandon. He is also 26 years old, so it's 3 players in a row that are 26. How about that? Originally from Sicklerville, New Jersey, and still lives there. He's a content producer, so I guess me and him do similar stuff, maybe. He describes himself as empathetic, inquisitive, and relatable. Says that Survivor is his favorite thing in the world. It changed him for the better before he even stepped foot in Fiji. He wants to be the person this game can turn him into. He says he has a background in writing, which could be very valuable to him because he likes to think that he knows what to say, how to say it, and who he should say it to. He says he wakes up every day wishing he was Mike White. Played one of the most impressive Survivor games ever, balancing his insane social savviness with oozing like ability. He hopes to play like any of the Survivor writers. Give me David Wright, Cochran, or Penner. He says that. Okay. He says, let's see. Okay. I'm trying to get a lot out of this in terms of I'm quickly scanning through it. Obviously, I've read this before, but I'm trying to get what would be valuable to Survivor. And then he's giving us hobbies like going out to eat, antiquing, leaving a party without telling people, his pet peeves, adult men who have Snapchat, people who message him hi when they need something from him, leave your request. He says that he hates tabletop games. I don't know if that means that he is good or bad at puzzles, but we could take what we will from that. And yeah, not much more here, I should say. I think the main takeaway from this for me is that I did not realize, I guess it's just like a profession that I never really thought of.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize how successful that writers have been on the show.
Yeah.
He says writers like David Wright, Cochran, and Penner, that is all 3 were writers. And so is he. So I think that is very interesting.
Yeah, no,
I don't have much more here. Honestly, I can't really get a good read on him.
I got a pretty good read on Brandon. I feel like, well, first of all, I didn't know him. I didn't know him prior to the season, but he is a super fan of Survivor. A lot of people online I saw were very excited that he's on the cast, and a couple of people, I guess, in the RHAP community do know him. So he's pretty well known in the Survivor circles, and I think those connections can always prove very helpful. Dylan, a funny story actually that isn't captured in this interview is that he had some anxiety and he almost didn't get on the plane. I think he was in sequester getting ready to fly out, and he almost was like, should I just not go? And I think he called his parents. I think his mom was like, I won't be disappointed in you if you don't go, but you'll be disappointed in yourself if you don't. And he's very happy, obviously, that he went and did it. I think I also found the Mike White thing so funny because he also said in his interview that he believes Mike White is the rightful winner of David versus Goliath. And he's like, if enough of us just keep saying it, maybe we'll change history and maybe Mike White will be the actual winner for the game he played. But no, I got some good vibes from Brandon. I also agree with his pet peeve. I also hate when people just message hi and then like they're waiting for you to write back. It's also kind of annoying to me as well. But I think Dylan also, he's actually set up pretty well. I think, especially in a 6-tribe, God, 6 tribes, could you imagine? In a 3-tribe season, 6 people each, your starting location or your starting group is actually very, very important. So there is some luck involved. And from first impressions, it sounded like he and Emily got good vibes from each other, and also Hannah. They're all on the yellow tribe. So not saying that's going to be, a 3-person alliance already into 6, which is huge early in the game. But I do think his landing spot here on the yellow tribe is pretty helpful for him. So I don't know if I see him like as a potential winner candidate yet. He could be, but I feel like he should be set up hopefully through the pre-merge.
Yeah, I would say I'm leaning more towards I see him going further in the game than I don't see him going further in the game. But again, me personally, I don't have a great read yet. So I'm kind of he's one of the people I would say I'm curious about. All right, and Emily, who got good vibes from Brandon, is next. She is 28, so the first person not to be 26. She is originally from Texas, and she currently lives in Laurel, Maryland. She is an investment analyst. She is described herself as direct, genuine, and aggressive. She says that some of the best advice she has received is to live a more interesting life, and she thinks it's Survivor. What's more interesting than it? Which I agree. So, that's why she's playing the game. She says, and this is extremely interesting here. She says that when she was 18, she moved to Shanghai to be part of the inaugural class of the first joint Sino-American University in China. She's accustomed to working and competing against people with different backgrounds and life experiences. Very, very good thing to have going into Survivor. Mm-hmm. She says that this is hilarious. She's been told that her personality is extremely similar to Cass, which she takes as a compliment. However, she plans on playing her own game and making an entirely unique set of mistakes. I don't know what to take from that, but okay. She says, let's see if we get anything else here. She says she lacks a lot of traditional qualities that make a good Survivor player. She's out of shape, doesn't like the outdoors, and people could find her off-putting, which is exactly why they'll never see her coming. What are your thoughts, Ryan? I have some immediate thoughts.
I mean, Emily is interesting. I mean, I think, and first of all, you could tell from her bio, Dylan, and she says it too, she's very blunt. She's just very upfront, honestly. And not only did she think that she would be like Cass, but everybody has to take a Survivor psych evaluation before they go out there. And her results, apparently from production, they told her your results mirrored Cass's almost to a T, which is pretty funny. I would love to see a modern Chaos Cass, honestly. I think Emily, and also if you watched, if anyone saw this, Survivor put out a 3-minute video today, like the first 3 minutes of the season. And she's very blunt in that too. In her confessional, she goes, the whole point is to win. If I'm not going to win, I'd rather be out first, which is kind of like what Vita said. Vita said for Second Chance, he was like, if I had known I was going to be voted out first, I would have rather had not even been voted on. And I can appreciate that. I mean, I think you should be here to win. You shouldn't be playing just to make jury or just to make final 3. I would like to go out regardless. But I do appreciate her saying, like, if I'm not going to win, then what's the point? She's very blunt. I was going to be worried for her, Dylan, because I think, unfortunately, in the new era, like we like to say, we've seen statistically that the young females or females typically go out first, just because in a 6-person tribe, 3 tribes, they tend to favor strength. So the guys tend to go farther. We saw that last season with Maddie, Helen, Claire. So Emily could be in trouble if the yellow team loses. And I think that they're not the strongest tribe. I feel like blue is the strongest tribe to me, maybe red. But like I mentioned, I think she set up pretty well with the people that she landed with. Her and Brandon got good vibes from each other. She also got good vibes from Hannah on her season. On her tribe. So while I could see Yellow losing and she could be in trouble if she doesn't contribute in the challenges, she might have gotten a good landing spot as well. So not super high hopes on Emily yet, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm worried for her. She seems like she could be a high floor, no, a low floor, high ceiling player. Um, what do I mean by that? She could either go out really early or go far. I'm not sure I see an in between result there. Um, I don't know. It's like it's tough, right? When you think about Cass, it's like she was on a team, she was on a tribe that was arguably one of the worst tribes in Survivor history, and yet survived all the way to almost the end. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, what is that? Is that something where, like, if that season played over a million, like a bunch of times, is that something that would happen always to Cass, or did she happen to you know, like it's one of those things that I don't know if Cass played the game a bunch of times. How many times would she actually go that far? It is having somebody that is like Cass is a little bit of a red flag to me, just because
Mhm.
that is somebody who could rub certain people the wrong way. So it's like, if she is on a tribe with people that could, that could rub the wrong way, then she could easily go out early. If there
Yeah.
are people that could deal with that type of personality on her tribe, then I could see her going far, because she does seem like she's very smart. She has worked with people with different backgrounds, which is why I'm declaring her as my low floor, high ceiling player for the season. So let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Um,
We always have some high variance players for sure.
all right, Ryan, you want to take a few of the bios here, and then I'll
Sure.
zoom back. All right, cool.
Yeah. Brando, by the way, another one of my pet peeves, if I've mentioned this to you earlier, when they put people on the same season that have extremely similar names, a Brando and a Brandon. Off the top of my head, I know this happened in 44 or 43. There was like very similar names as well. Even on like Big Brother this season, there's a I'm sorry, not Big Brother. On the challenge this season, there's two Alyssas. Like, I can't stand when they put people with the same name or similar names on it. It just gets very confusing for both the viewers and whatnot. So, but Brandon or Brando, see, I just did it. Brando. Brando is 23. He's from Seattle. He's a software developer. He was drawn to Survivor because of players like Yowman, Yule, and Ty. I think he'd like to see people that look like him on TV, and that's kind of how he got into the show. The biggest thing he also says is that despite seeming like a nerd, because his three words are curious, clever, motivated, he comes off as kind of a class clown, and he loves to play pranks. And he's hoping that because of his jokey nature, that will lower his threat level. You see him with the glasses, he can come off as kind of smart. If they do Savvy or Sweat again, people might look at him and say, oh, you chose to do Savvy, you're a threat, whatever. He's hoping that his personality can kind of make them less wary of him. Some other things in his bio is that he, struggled with self-confidence issues when he was younger. He weighed almost 200 pounds when he was 16, and he, lost a lot of weight, and he started running more. He identifies a lot with David Wright, another David Wright reference here, who inspired him to push his limits and kind of go beyond. And he thinks he'll play kind of like Yowman, someone who is strategic, but also kind of very friendly as well. I love the reference to the truck, the infamous truck giveaway, where Yowman lost Fiji basically to Dreams, although Earl won. And then otherwise, the only other thing that I found funny in this bio was basically him saying that he hates when people take the urinal directly next to you, especially with others being open. I feel like that's a lot of people's pet peeves. I feel like that's just a universal pet peeve, honestly. But Brando, Dylan, what are your thoughts on Brando?
Yeah, I'm very, very high on Brando. I think that, when you look at somebody that is going to be successful in Survivor, it's somebody who is going to be underestimated, yet has the social, underestimated, but has the social and strategic game to get it done. When you immediately look at Brando, I think that he knows, and he kind of says this in his bio, that he's somebody that he thinks maybe, a little bit underestimated. He's, very, very skinny. Doesn't look like he'd be very good in challenges, or maybe like not that strong, I should say, physically. Yet he seems like he could be a pretty athletic person. He says that, running baseball, he plays sports. Like, he could be good physically. He identifies with David Wright, who kind of is that like similar archetype. Wasn't necessarily great at challenges, was underestimated, and yet went very far in the game. Yowman, again, another player that's not exactly like physically big or intimidating at all. So I think that I'm pretty high on him. And his story is very interesting.
Yeah.
The fact that this guy weighed 200 pounds at one point, and now he looks like that. So that's pretty impressive. Um, Funny guy. I mean, clearly his pet peeve is something that basically everybody's pet peeve, but he was not afraid to say it. So yeah, I'm pretty high on Brando. When I look at players preseason that I think are going to go far, and I think this is like season 43. I think everybody kind of pegged Owen as somebody that could do well, is because he seems like somebody who players would maybe underestimate, and he kind of knew that. Yet he could kind of have the total package of being pretty solid physically, despite being underestimated. Pretty very good strategically, I should say. And Brando's somebody that I could kind of see having that full package. So I like Brando a lot. I'm pretty high on him. And yeah, I don't have much else to say about him, but I am high on him.
The only other thing about Brando I'll say is that he was one of the people who obviously recognizes Bruce from 44. I think most people on this cast probably recognize Bruce from 44. But he thought Bruce would be somebody that he could potentially work with, and they're both going to be on the Blue Tribe. So something to keep an eye out for as well.
So yeah, Jay makes an interesting comment here in the chat and says Brando, aka Carson 2.0. I think it's another player, and yet I didn't even mention that he's a software developer, so clearly really really smart as well.
I'm trying to remember if Carson. Somebody made a reference to 3D printing. I can't remember if it was him, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was him. So.
It would not surprise me either. All right, so we have Hannah here as our next. I guess you could take this also, Ryan.
Go for it. I'll take the next like 2 or 3, then we'll pass back to you, and then we'll go back and forth. Cool. Hannah is 33. She's a therapist. She's also from Maryland, and I say also because on Survivor, especially in a season like this where there's 3 tribes, you want to basically try to connect with people over anything, because those early days are so critical, especially in a 26-day season. And her being from Maryland, along with Emily, who's also on her tribe, could prove pretty helpful. Hannah was very interesting. We see some therapists recently, like obviously we had Tori in 42. You think of Denise, obviously the sex therapist, probably the most well-known therapist on Survivor. So you think of like the typical therapist tropes, as it were. But Hannah really comes off as kind of goofy, Dylan. I don't know if you saw any of her videos, but she even says, like, I plan to be like the comic relief despite being a therapist. I want to kind of lean into the fun. She says, describes herself as enthusiastic, passionate, and authentic. This was really funny, Dylan. She says, I identify with Aubrey and I hope I play like her, but also Kelly Wentworth. And I feel like if you look at her picture, it's like instant to me. Like her picture looks like you blended Aubrey with the glasses with the blonde hair of Kelly. It's almost uncanny now that she said
it. That's actually funny.
Like as soon as she said that, I'm like, oh my God, it's literally Kelly with like Aubrey's glasses. But no, those are 2 great players to compare yourselves to. The other thing I'll mention for her, Dylan, before I pass it to you, is her pet peeves, and then also her video with Mike Bloom. Her pet peeve says she doesn't like narcissistic types. And in her Mike Bloom video, she said, I want to target people who are like the center of attention and people who are kind of like all about themselves. Now, there's a person in her tribe that could kind of play into this in Caleb, so we'll have to see how this works out. But Hannah is somebody who I think, like Brandon and Emily, could have landed in a pretty good spot in her tribe. I think I could see her as a social player, so I do have some pretty good hopes for Hannah. I guess we'll see how it goes. What are your thoughts on her?
Yeah, I'm pretty high on her as well. I think that the fact that she is goofy will help her a lot, as we've seen in the new era. A lot of players who have won have been players who have provided comedic relief, who have been goofy, who have been, and a lot of times when you are goofy in Survivor, you are not exactly immediately pegged as a big threat, and it
Who
helps
won last season.
Exactly, yeah, Jam. So and Gabler before, I don't think anybody saw him as a threat. I would describe him as a little bit goofy for sure. So I think like when you're that comedic relief in such a short game, immediately you're going to be like, that's somebody that I want to work with. That's somebody that I want to keep around. I like that. Plus the fact that she's a therapist, always a good thing to have for Survivor. Also interesting. She said she was a sleepaway camp counselor, which she feels like prepared her for the game, which is something that's interesting. I don't know if anybody's ever said that before. As somebody who previously went to sleepaway camp only for 2 summers, but I know what it's like living with difficult personalities, being away from home. There are some overlaps, so I do kind of think that that's very interesting that she brought that up. So yeah, I'm pretty high on Hannah, so I'm curious to see how she does here.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say about her quickly just is that, like with Jam Jam, I feel like a lot of the new era winners, are people that we typically didn't see before in Survivor. Obviously, I feel like we've learned a lot from seeing Erica, Marianne, Gabler, and Jam Jam's win. So at this point, we can't discount anybody. And I feel like if Hannah really is goofy and she tries to be authentic, those are the players that are winning these seasons, honestly, especially Marianne and Erica and Jam Jam. So I really do feel like if Hannah can lean into that, she could be set up well.
For sure. And now we have Bruce.
Bruce. Oh, I'm so happy Bruce is back. I'll pass it back to you. I'll pass it back to you after this. So, cool. Bruce, very excited to see Bruce back. I think everyone is super hyped that he got the call to come back right away. In case people don't remember Bruce or need a quick refresher, he's 47 from Rhode Island. He's an insurance agent. The biggest thing, obviously, to mention with Bruce is that he is probably in a very unique situation because we can't call Bruce a returning player because he has literally 12 hours more experience than they do. And he was concussed for 10 of those hours. So he even said in his interview, he's like, I'm going to say to them, when I wake up on day 2 with you, we're all in the same spot. Like we're literally on the same playing ground. The other thing he mentions in both his bio and also in his video is that he's tired of, the dad energy. He doesn't want to be seen as dad. He wants to be seen as the fun uncle or the drunk uncle at the family dinner. So you can kind of call him Unc. But no, he's described himself as funny, competitive, energetic. And I think his bio actually is very similar to his bio from 44, so I won't rehash it that much. But he still feels like he'll try to play kind of like Jeremy. And I think Jeremy's a great person, especially in this type of era that you want to compare yourself to. Jeremy kind of, I think, translates well to a lot of games. You mentioned Dylan with Cass. If somebody plays in a vacuum, how many times are they going to win? Or if you simulate a season 100 times, and I feel like Jeremy would win a season a lot of the time. I could see Bruce being somebody who knows how 44 would have went if he stayed on that tribe with Carson, Jam Jam, and Carolyn. But I do feel like Bruce can do very well here. A lot of people, Dee, Drew, Jake, Brando, a lot of people said, oh, I think it'd be cool to work with Bruce. And especially in a 3-tribe season where you need strength, I'm hoping Bruce does well, Dylan. I'm really rooting for him. I feel like he is in a great spot to make the merge. With his story, I don't know if they're going to let him win, because what would be more impressive than seeing Bruce concuss himself on day 1 and 44, come back and win the next season? I feel like the story kind of writes itself. The Survivor script is in. But I feel like Bruce should be set up pretty well to make the merge, is my opinion.
Yeah, Bruce, definitely rooting for him. Great story. Happy he got another chance to play this game. That was absolutely brutal to see him pulled so early of last season. So again, happy he gets a chance. He does compare himself to one of my favorite players of all time in Jeremy. So I'm definitely interested to see how he applies that. And yeah, my only worry for him would be that he is a lot older than a lot of the people in the tribe. So maybe he won't fit in like he wants to. That's always, it's always a little bit difficult. You don't want like a player like a Rocksroy, which I don't think he'll be. But Rocksroy is a lot older. Gabler in season 43 is the success story of that. He is the player that we thought was going to be the Rocksroy, and then he ends up winning. So it's like, how could you be the oldest player on the tribe, or one of the oldest players in the cast, and still manage to fit in and be liked by the rest of the tribe that they want to keep you around? How do you kind of hide the fact that, you want to be a leader, but you don't want to stand out that much and be like, the person that people get annoyed with because they're leading too much? How do you, keep that target low? We saw Gabler handle it great. And then he ends up winning the game. So I think that'll be, the tough task for Bruce, is just fitting in and, people wanting to work with him. Like we've seen from videos that have came out already, it seems like everybody wants to work with him. So maybe maybe that part of the game will not be an issue for him. And if it's not an issue for him, then sky's the limit. So I am curious to see what happens. And I am rooting for him for sure.
Yeah.
All right. We have here, I don't want to pronounce this name wrong, so I'm going to go by her stage name, which is J Maya. She is extremely interesting story. And definitely one of the more interesting people that have been on in the new era. I was reading the bio and I was like, this is pretty unbelievable. She's 24 years old, originally from San Francisco, currently lives in LA. She is a singer. She describes herself as ambitious, optimistic, and creative. She said that the first time she watched Survivor, she knew that this was the quest that she had been waiting for. She's always looked up to people that have played this game. And having the opportunity to play it is not one she takes lightly. They say that this game changes and challenges you. She is ready to be challenged. And, this is somebody who has taken risks before. She turned down early admission to Harvard Law School to pursue a career as a singer and songwriter. And without even reading the rest of her bio, I've done the research and it looks like she's been very successful already.
Oh my God, yeah.
She says her entire life she was preparing for a legal career because that's what she felt like was expected to her. She felt pressure to go on that path, but that she realized that she was running out of time to live life on her own terms, and she moved to LA and started a music career, which is an extremely cutthroat industry. And you have to learn the ropes extremely quickly, which is what this experience will reminds her of. She says Parvati is her role model. She adores Marianne's game, which I think is a very interesting blend of two people. She says, she seems pretty athletic also, likes to run, play pickup soccer, but she's also, says that crossword puzzles are one of her hobbies, which is interesting because obviously puzzles are a big part of this game and the challenges. I don't think anything else here is of note, but I will say that I did look her up on Instagram and I believe she was near 100,000 followers. So this is somebody who is pretty well known in terms of the music industry, and definitely comes in with a lot more famous than a lot of the other people on the tribe. Not saying that people are going to know who she is or anything, but I just do think it is interesting the way that she is pretty big in her career field and took such a big risk to the point where she turned down Harvard Law School to become a singer and was successful immediately. Like she said, she did that at 20. Well, she is 24, so I assume she turned down Harvard Law School at 22 or 23. And she's already very successful. So that's awesome to see. I always like seeing people who are very successful, either business people or, in their respective careers. She already has taken a huge risk in her life and it paid off. She will not be afraid to take risks in this game, which I'm very interested to see how, what happens there. Obviously you have to be willing to take risks in this game, but you have to be willing to take risks at the right time. You don't want to take the big risk at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. So is this somebody who could, overplay? Or is this somebody who is going to know when to strike and potentially be brilliant at this game? I think, she has a lot of potential and I'm very much looking forward to her playing this game.
Yeah, it's very impressive for J Maya, like you said. I mean, to have that ride to Harvard Law and turn it down to take a path in music is obviously a very big swing. But like you said, it paid off for her with her Instagram following. I just checked her out I just looked it up on TikTok. She's at almost 530,000 followers. So she's made a following for herself. It's very interesting, Dylan, that she says in her video that she doesn't plan to tell people that she was going to go to Harvard. Ironically, I feel like that's kind of tough now in the season because there are actually 3 lawyers on this cast. So it's a very law-heavy cast. I don't know if all of them are going to reveal that they're in the legal field, but I feel like I mentioned earlier, you want to find common ground to connect with people early to make those bonds to get you through the early stages of the game. So if she, because on her tribe, Julie, on the Red Tribe, is also a lawyer. Who knows if they'll both mention it, but I think that common ground could possibly help them. But no, I do think J Maya is in an interesting position. She mentions that she would like to play like Marianne, someone who is social up front and then kind of be more methodical and strategic down the road towards the end game because no one really recognized Marianne as a threat until the end. So I could see that being a good path for her. Like I mentioned with Emily, my only worry is that, like I said, I hate to say it, unfortunately, in the new era, women are targeted early, especially for the challenge prowess. So if Red Tribe loses, I could see them potentially looking at her. Another thing that does worry me with her, Dylan, is that she does say in her video with Mike that she does want to work with other women because she knows they go home early in the new era. The only problem is if you say that to the wrong person, like to Julie or to who else is on her tribe, to Julie or to like D, and then they run it back to the guys, she could be an easy target. So she's got to find her footing. But to me, Jay Maya is somebody like Marianne, like I said, where I worry for her in the early game. But if she makes it past those first couple of votes, she could go pretty far. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said there. And we can move next to Drew. Drew is 23 years old, originally from Birmingham, Michigan. And he currently lives in Philly as a grad student. He is smart, witty, and dynamic. He says he wants to play Survivor because it's the ultimate test of character. He's worked hard building himself up into who he is today. And his growth was his growth in life was motivated by watching Survivor. So he's excited to play the game and see how far he has come. He says he moved to Philadelphia on his own during the pandemic and worked at a sales center. They gave him practical sales experience that he thinks a lot of people at his age don't have. He said that he had to make connections within the first 10 seconds or he was out of luck. He said people will make the make the comparison to Cochran, but he thinks that he will identify most with Penner. And he also thinks that his gameplay will remind you of Ryan from season 35, which is certainly a comparison that we have not heard often. He says that he plays Scrabble, writes trivia. He says he hates the oh my god autocorrect. He won a trivia national championship in 2019 and he captained his team. He said you would never guess it. He's a pretty open book. He was elected secretary of the student body in high school. Yeah, not much else here. This is somebody who I legitimately have no idea what to think here. Seems like somebody who's extremely smart, but potentially could come off as maybe he's a little bit overconfident in himself. That's just kind of what I get from this. Like he's pointing out that he was elected as what was it, secretary in high school by his peers, won a trivia national championship. I'm not really sure if these will be transferable skills to Survivor. But I am interested to see because this is clearly somebody who's like a super fan. But I feel like it kind of seems like he thinks very highly of himself in the bio. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about.
I am also a little worried about Drew. Like I mentioned earlier, a couple people from the first impressions question kind of had a few red flags. Brandon had a couple red flags with him. Like I mentioned earlier, D also had some red flags and they're on the same red tribe. I also feel like, I think we see this a lot, Dylan, and it's unfortunate. I think if you play back-to-back seasons with someone that's very similar to you, people are going to say like, oh, I just saw this person go do it. I'm scared that he's the same. So I guess an example would be they just saw Carson play. Carson was a great player, probably could have won if he made it to the end. And they have the glasses. They're very smart. They're grad students around the same age. Very easy for people to say, we can't get another Carson in our game. Let's take him out early. He's going to be practicing all the puzzles because those first perceptions are very hard to shake. So I do worry for Drew in this way. I also, by the way, like you said, I love the Ryan Ulrich comparison. Didn't think in the year 2023 we would get a Ryan Ulrich comparison. Ryan was a pretty good player in 35. I don't want to say 35. Problem is with Ryan, he tried to play a low strategic game, and the jury kind of chastised Ryan for being a bit lazy at camp and kind of being a bit sneaky. So while I think Ryan was a good player, I don't think Drew should emulate a lot of his game and try to kind of build in some more personable things in the new era. But we'll see how Drew does.
Yep. I think, yeah, I like to hear that we have a lot of this. We're on the same page with that because I think we're pretty much on the same page with Drew and like a lot of things. I was like, a little bit unsure. So I was like, I don't know if we're getting different vibes, but we're getting the same vibes. So good to see. We have Julie here, who is the oldest on the cast, 49 years old, from Brentwood, Tennessee, where she currently lives. Also, she is a state attorney, hardworking, loyal, and smart. She said that the first season of Survivor that she ever saw was Second Chance.
Mm.
Um, 40 years old, recently a single mom, two middle school children, and she had just started law. Oh, okay. At the time that she saw the season, she was 40 years old, recently single, two middle school children, and had just started law school. So interesting that she started law school that late.
Mm-hmm.
But she said that she watched Survivor get a second chance at the game, and the whole game felt like it was a second chance at surviving life. She was hooked. She said it still inspires her to take risks and win at life. Why would she not want to be part of this amazing show? Um, she said that, again, she started law school while she was 40, while being a single mom. So she wanted to create a new life for herself and her kids. She didn't give up, built relationships. All this has prepared her for the game. She identifies with Sari because she got off the couch, took a risk, and played the game. She wants to play like her. And she also hopes to play like Jesse in season 43. She likes to bake cupcakes and cakes. She likes to jog with her black lab. She says that she hopes that she doesn't. She hopes that she doesn't look as old as she is. Wait, hold on. 1 sec. Okay. So she doesn't want you to be able to tell that she has a 23-year-old daughter and 21-year-old son. She hopes that the other players cannot tell that she's an attorney. So that seems like another person that doesn't want to tell people that she's an attorney, which is interesting. What are your thoughts on Julie? Personally, I'm immediately concerned that she's just the oldest woman on the cast because usually those players, they have a tough time. They have to shed that stereotype of being the oldest woman on the tribe, basically, physically and, the way that others will connect with her. I think it's interesting the fact that she doesn't want to tell people she's a lawyer. I feel like that's a huge part of her story, the fact that she became a lawyer so late in her life. So I'm wondering what she's going to tell other people. I don't have a lot of other thoughts here, except for I feel like she could be like the mom of this season. I'm getting those vibes immediately. I don't want, maybe it's a stereotype, just from being the oldest woman, but also I think that she kept talking about her kids, which makes me think that she is going to be like that mom stereotype. But what are your thoughts on Julie?
Yeah, I mean, Julie, first of all, she's extremely likable. If you watch her video, she has a very strong Southern accent. Also being from, where's she from? She's from Tennessee.
From
When
Tennessee.
she says, what's up?
I was going to say from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yeah.
So when she says like she feels like a mix of Tina and T-Bird, first of all, love the old school references from seasons 2 and 3. But yeah, no, that Southern type of charm, she definitely has it. And Dylan, you're right. She is worried that she is the oldest castaway this season and on her tribe. So she's very self-aware. Her plan to combat that is to go to the strongest players and align with them. So she probably, on her red tribe, she probably will go to Austin and or to Sifu, and she's probably going to try to align with them. And I feel like that's probably her best bet to stay safe if the red tribe loses a challenge. And yeah, you're right that, the oldest women or older players tend to get targeted early. But again, what happened last season? Carolyn kind of proved a lot of people wrong, made it very far, could have gotten some votes and won her season. So I feel like even though my first inclination is to be worried about Julie, I don't want to count her out. I think she could go far. It just depends on how the early game goes for her, kind of like with J Maya. If she survives the first few votes, she could be set up well. But I do like her strategy that she's aware of the stereotype and she wants to align with the strong guys to try to combat that.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting and probably pretty solid strategy also going in. So we'll see how that works out for her. All right, we have Jake here. He is also 26 years old again. From Hanson, Massachusetts, currently lives in Boston. He is another attorney. Boisterous Willie and
Wiley.
I honestly cannot tell you what that meant. If you want to give me, I don't know, we can look up a definition here. I don't know.
Wiley basically means kind of like you're not conniving, but basically means like you're kind of like you're sly, you're clever, you're wily, kind of like that.
Okay. That's okay. Persistent. He says that Survivor is a celebration of everything that he's been able to accomplish in his life. He graduated law school while working 2 jobs. He lost 80 pounds in the process, that's amazing. studied for the bar exam, which will help him, which helped him prepare for Survivor. It takes a lot of dedication, self-control, enduring some tough days. But if no one respects it, one can meet the challenge. But if one respects it, one can meet the challenge. Says he identifies most with Wendell. Says that they both have a logical side, both went to law school, both creatives. He thinks that combo served them well. His favorite hobbies are theater, Dungeons and Dragons, and working out, which is certainly an interesting trifecta. And he said that he finished a Spartan race. So this is somebody who is very much going to be a factor physically. And yeah, that's all I got here. My takeaway from Jake is that, and if you've seen the videos, I think that this is the takeaway you get away as well. He's somebody that is he's a pretty strong personality, I think, or he will be. Somebody who is gonna he's a very strong Boston accent is gonna come
Very
off.
strong Boston accent.
I think he's gonna come off as kind of, not loud, but like everyone will know he's there. When you're, physically dominant, which he could be, and also pretty loud, and everyone knows you're there. It could be a merge boot type situation, or somebody who people paint as a threat right away, and he could go even earlier than that. So I have my reservations about Jake, but I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, no, I actually really like Jake, honestly, and you're right.
Yeah, and yeah. One thing quick. That's not to say I don't like him. I think that he is going to be a very entertaining player who may struggle a little bit early on. So we'll have to see.
No, and that's totally fair. I do like Jake a lot. I feel like, like you said, the Boston accent. I mean, he opens up saying from Boston. I passed the bar, but like no. So he comes across like that. So we go from the Southern accent in Julie to Jake's Boston accent. I feel like and I keep mentioning this, like the common threads are very important. I feel like Jake has some of the most common threads. Like he can connect with a lot of people. So what do I mean by that? If people find out that he's an attorney, or Julie reveals that she's an attorney, he can work with other attorneys possibly. He also teaches theater to kids, and there are some, artistic and musical types on this cast. He could align with them. Brando lost a lot of weight when he was younger. Jake lost 80 pounds. So you kind of see what I'm saying, where there's a lot of common threads with a lot of players, him and Brando being on the same tribe.
That is a good point. I do like that.
So I do think he has the potential to link up with a lot of people. I'm not going to make the comparison because like Nick Wilson was also an attorney, but like Nick tried to connect with Mike White on a couple things. He connected with Christian on some things. Like Nick had a lot of fingers in a lot of different jars, a lot of hands in a lot of different jars, I should say. So I really feel like Jake is kind of similar, where he can connect with a lot of people. I love him mentioning in it's not in his bio, but he mentions it in the Mike Bloom video that he loves the game that Chris Daughtry played in Vanuatu, and Chris is very underrated. I feel like that's a great comparison. And yeah, Jake's also somebody that said he would be open to working with Bruce as well. So I do think, like you mentioned, like a big personality, some people may not like it. Like Emily talks about, she's not a big personality type. Hannah was the same way. But I do think for his starting tribe on the blue team, I do feel like Jake is set up well to go far, is my opinion.
Yeah, he'll definitely be, I think, somebody that is going to get a lot of confessionals based on what we saw in the interview. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of him this season. Even if he does go out early, I think we'll see a lot of him. All right, Katura. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, Katura. Yeah,
Katura. 35 years old, originally from St. Louis, but currently lives in Brooklyn as a civil rights attorney. Who would have thought? Another attorney. Calculating, determined, unexpected. She says that she firmly believes that doing things that scare the crap out of you is truly living. So it's another very similar to somebody else's answer. I forgot who it was, but she says that she feels prepared for this game as a Black person, a woman, a queer person, and a child of poverty. So, those are definitely three bunch of things that are, unique. Something that, it's like she's been through a lot. She's faced a lot of adversity. So she feels like that prepared her for the game. She identifies most with Natalie and Spencer for their never quit attitude. She thinks they'll have a mixture of Natalie's determination with a tiny bit of Boston Rob's manipulative leadership, but not overboard. She thinks he'll be a new player entirely. She wants loyalty so unrelenting that it's illogical in an alliance partner. Like Laurel's to Wendell. All I will say is good luck with that in the new era. Um, Hot yoga, eating delicious foods, and countering systemic racism are her hobbies. She is a civil rights attorney, so that is her job. Um, her pet peeves: slow walkers, slow talkers, and people who ooze of privilege.
Shocker, you're from New York. What do you hate? Slow walkers and slow
Yeah,
talkers.
yeah. She says that hold on. This is very interesting. Her biggest inspiration is herself. Katura the child. I had to read that a few times before I actually said it out loud. The little girl who faced some of the most unimaginable obstacles, yet still decided to protect herself, become a civil rights lawyer, break generational curses. She grew up and did exactly that. She says that she's been preparing her whole life for Survivor, even when she didn't realize it. This is Katura is for sure going to be interesting. She seems like somebody that could be a very strong personality as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing that from her. Definitely someone who's very confident in herself. Yet she's succeeded a lot in life. I think it's so funny that she says that she's gonna have a little bit of Boston Rob's manipulative leadership, but not too much. Again, I don't want to I do like her a lot, but also at the same time, that's something that she needs to watch out for. You don't want to come on too strong. That could be an issue. But I think based on the way she answered a lot of these questions, I think we'll be seeing a lot of her. I think she's somebody who is not going to be afraid to speak up, which always makes for great TV. And I'm excited to see her play.
Yeah, no, I think Katura has a lot of interesting things about her. I think she has a good mind for the game. I'm curious to see how she puts it into practice, because she mentions how she wants to be in an alliance with more quiet individuals and people won't suspect it. She references Erica and Heather, and that's a great example, because not only I feel like did some of the players not know, we as the audience, for how little Erica and Heather were shown in 41, we didn't know how closely they were aligned. I think we were shocked to find how Heather was like, oh, we had a day 2 alliance, and we're like, that was never shown to us with Erica as the winner. But she also mentions, Dylan, that she wants both a public and a private alliance. So, you always think about, outwardly, we see Jeremy, Spencer, and Tasha. We see how closely they're working together. That's a very public alliance. Or on the same season, Abby and Kelly and Sierra, the 3 witches, we know they're very publicly working together. So she wants to have a public alliance so people kind of know where she stands, but she wants to have a private alliance too, so people don't know where they're so for example, just take someone random. It's you never would think her and I don't know, her and Jake, I can't say Jake because Jake's a lawyer, but her and somebody else that you would never suspect her working with. And it's oh, they might be working together. So I do think that that's a good idea from her. And she also says that if the boat comes to go on the journey for the summit, she doesn't want to go right away because she wants to build those bonds. So I do think she has a good mind for the game. We'll see how she does.
All righty. We got 7 left.
Let's
get to Caleb here. All right, Caleb. He is 29, from Canada, Vancouver. Currently lives in Vancouver. So good track record for Canadians lately. He works in software sales, charismatic, opportunistic, and a golden retriever. He says he remembers laughing with his mom at the pathetic crying survivors on TV. He always couldn't wait for him to be out there, so it'll be meaningful for him to close that chapter. $1 million goes even further in Canada. He was lifeguarding at 17 years old because he wanted to start a painting business, and he's ran this business throughout to pay for his school. He's failed a lot in life, but life and street skills he has that he will bring to Survivor. This is my favorite answer that anybody has said so far. He says that he wants to say that he'll play most like Tony, but out of respect to him, he will not say it. Thank you. Finally, somebody. He says he plays basketball, travels, tries things for the first time, friend-related activities, and trouble. I don't know if he means Trouble the board game or trouble he likes getting in trouble. I don't know what that means. he he says that his pet peeves are people with no sense of humor, people who talk about wanting things but won't do anything about it. Um, he says he works for a marketing company that partners with businesses to educate community about choosing conservative healthcare over over addictive medication and invasive surgery. It's a mission he's passionate about. Over the past 5 years, he's generated millions in sales, which means he's helping thousands of patients and local businesses. This is very interesting, and I think this will help him a lot. He says he's worked remotely since 2017. He's lived in 27 different countries. Fiji is his 28th country that he's considering himself, quote unquote, living in.
Yeah.
I'm kind of blown away by Caleb to start. First of all, living in 27 different countries is insane. He's from Canada, lives in Canada right now. Or I guess it seems like he's kind of a nomad and just moves around all the time. But yeah, he has a kind of a crazy background. It's another person who's like a go-getter. Started their own business at 17 so he could pay for his school. Seems pretty, maybe a little bit funny based on his Tony answer. Personable. Says he doesn't like people with no sense of humor, so I would assume that he's going to be funny himself. I would hope. I'm pretty high on Caleb personally. My one worry for him is that sometimes players with a big personality like that could come off a little too strong too soon. But I think that he will be entertaining, and I think that if he's with the right people, maybe, just maybe, if they could handle that big personality and they like him for that big personality, then he is somebody that could be somebody that people could want to work with a lot. That being said, he has to watch with who he aligns with for sure and who's on his tribe.
Dylan, I totally agree with you. I could see Caleb as our winner. I could also see Caleb being the first person out of his tribe, because when I watched his videos, he is so likable. He made me smile. He did a whole video. Not a whole video, but basically when they asked all the castaways, what are your first impressions? He basically was so perceptive. He was like, all right, we need to have a strong guy in each tribe. I think Austin will be on this tribe. Jake will be on this tribe. I'll be on this tribe. The nerdy guy, Drew, will be here. He has a good mind for the game, and I think he's very likable. And he even says he's like a golden retriever, which I totally see. The problem is, I think like you mentioned, Dylan, everybody sees it too. And if you have a big personality like that, you're going to get targeted, especially based on who you're with. And he's on the yellow tribe with Brandon and Emily and Hannah. And for Emily and Hannah to both say people with big personalities and center of attention are not their type of people, I'm a little worried for Caleb. I think if he was on red or blue, I would feel much better about his prospects in the game. I think he really needs to hope a yellow team goes on a pretty good run and they don't lose too many challenges. Because even though I think he has such great energy for this game and he reeks of a new era winner to me, I could also see him getting clipped pretty early. So he's got to be careful.
Yeah, I agree. Add him to the list of low floor, high ceiling type,
high variance players. Yeah.
All right.
I can take the next if you want.
Go for it.
All right. So we have Kelly. Kelly is a nurse. She's a critical care nurse. She's from New York. She talks about how she started watching the show during the COVID pandemic, and it was the most difficult thing she's ever done. And she really wants to channel that spirit of perseverance and humanity. She has something that she wants to prove about nurses. A lot of people see nurses as caring and shoulders to cry on, but she wants to prove that they have a lot more to them and they're very intelligent. I think she even says in the 3-minute video that was posted today, she wants to kind of like lure you in, but she has like that knife behind her back. So I think a lot of people are going to be drawn to Kelly from the viewers. I think they're going to want to see her do well. She relates to Kelly Wentworth's tenacious nature and scrappy vibe, but she really feels like she can be similar to Parvati. I know Dylan's flags are going up. Don't compare yourself to the Parvatis and the Tonys of the world. But, I do see her possibly having some connections there. Also, she mentioned Suri. As they're both nurses. I think someone else mentioned Suri, which is very topical as Suri is on Big Brother this season. But I do think Kelly has potential to do well. A lot of people are liking Kelly as an early favorite. She says that why will you be the sole survivor? My job requires me to be adaptable in the face of constant change and chaos. I can bond with a lot of people because I'm a nurse. I'm a chameleon. I can be a bro with the jocks. I can nerd out with the nerds, be besties with the girls, and I'm ready to surprise people and do what it takes. And I feel like for me, it's very simple. If Kelly doesn't play too hard, too fast, or doesn't play too sloppy, I think she could do very, very well in this game, honestly. What are your thoughts?
So if I had to pick one person to go the furthest in this game that I felt like the most confident in going far, it's probably Kelly. So far, I felt great about her as soon as I read her bio. When they came out a few weeks ago. First of all, I think that her occupation is will be unbelievably helpful to Survivor. Being a nurse, she definitely has like the empathy that I think you need it at points. She has, sees different people every single day of her job. She has to, make relationships with a lot of these people, and she deals with a lot of different personalities. Immediate plus. I believe that, and I don't know if I read this somewhere, but I believe that when Survivor found Kelly, they thought that she had like a lot of poverty in her, which I think is interesting. Right, because like usually it's like, all right, don't compare yourself to poverty, but also like if Survivor thought that, then that's interesting. Yeah, so I think given like she seems somebody that's very emotionally intelligent, and I think that based on her job, her answers here, she has a lot of different things that I think will make her do very well in Survivor.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident that she goes far. Pretty confident. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Sifu. Nicholas, but he's going by Sifu. Sifu is great. I think Sifu is a lot of fun. Sifu is how old is he? He is 30 years old. He's a gym owner from Illinois. Basically, he's kind of like, I can't remember if Jam Jam said he's had a lot of jobs, but somebody in the new era was like, oh, I had a lot of jobs before being my current profession. So I think he's pretty well rounded. I'm mentioning that because like Jake, maybe based on his former jobs, he can connect with a lot of different people. Obviously, he's a pretty big guy. Also being a gym owner, I feel like he will be very valuable to the red team early on, along with Austin. That's why I'm going back and forth, Dylan, about whether I think blue or red will be our strong tribe this season. Like in the new era, we have one tribe every season who's like the dominant tribe. And I feel like it will be either blue or red. He says that he's outgoing, loving, and empowering. He says that being a martial artist his whole life, started a Yang style Tai Chi when he was 6. It's taught him so much about being mentally tough. And I think in the new era, that's big. And Dylan, Jeff's going to do this. Jeff loves his metaphors. Jeff loves like, you got to dig deep. You got to find yourself in the new era. I bet you, Dylan, the over under about the Tai Chi references, the trial is going to be 1.5, where Jeff's like, Sifu, talk to me about how being involved in Tai Chi is like being on Survivor. It's already going to happen. But no, I mean, he says that he thinks he'll play like Tony. So Dylan's already giving him a strike for that. But no, I do think that Sifu is somebody who could do well in this game. The biggest thing I'll mention is that he's afraid people might perceive him as a physical threat, but he really hopes they see him more as an asset to the tribe and less as a threat. And I think, Dylan, if he is like very carefree at camp, if you think about Coach, and Coach does Tai Chi with people on the beach, and every morning you do Tai Chi with Sifu on the beach, I could see him doing well. I worry, like you always mention with the early merge threats, he could be an early merge boot possibly. But I do like Sifu a lot. What are your thoughts?
I don't know how well this guy will do at the game, but he's going to be an awesome character. I could pretty much guarantee that. I'm looking forward to watching him play. Looks like, strong guy, should be really athletic and good in challenges. And also looks like I'm not sure what to expect from his personality, but I expect some kind of I expect him to be a very good personality. That's what I'll say. And I expect him to eat up a lot of screen time. That's what type of player I think he is. Again, I don't know how far he'll go, but I'm pretty confident that he will be a likable guy that I think people will. Yeah. I think I could see him being a fan favorite for sure.
Okay. So I can take Kendra, and then how many are left after Kendra, Dylan?
So we got Kendra, Sean, and then Sabaya, and then we're done.
Okay, so I'll take Kendra, and then I'll pass it to you for the last two.
Sounds good.
So Kendra is, I'm like going back and forth between Dylan's screen and then also my notes here. Kendra is 31 years old. She is a bartender from Colorado. She describes herself as being somewhat spiritual. She has that certain energy to her. She really thinks that she's outgoing, determined, and enthusiastic. She walked the Camino Primitivo in Spain, excuse me, and that definitely prepared her for this game. It sounds like that's a 15-mile trek, which is no small feat. So she definitely has that adventurous nature to her. I love the references here. She thinks she could play like Amanda Kimmel. Love an Amanda Kimmel reference in 2023. Michelle Fitzgerald and Kim Spradlin. But she connects a lot with Carolyn as somebody who can be herself and authentic and just be, so transparent to other people. She values loyalty in an alliance partner. This is very interesting. Her pet peeve is that she doesn't like when people ask her the meaning of their tattoos, which I can understand. I can understand, like, you don't want your private life to be that much delved into. But I feel like on Survivor, when people are getting to know you, they might ask you what a tattoo is. So I really hope she doesn't like take that too harshly. Dylan, long story short, I'm actually a little worried for Kendra. I feel like not only on the Blue Tribe she could stand out, but a couple people like Jake and Brando and even Caleb, although Caleb's not on her tribe, but Brando and Jake are, kind of got some weird vibes from Kendra. So I hope for her sake, Blue is that dominant tribe, because I could see her going early, possibly.
I have no idea what to think. You would think her being a bartender could help her a lot. You interact with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Also, like, she definitely she compares herself to Carolyn, so I expect her to be I don't want to say weird, but like an interesting personality for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen Carolyn players in the new era do really well. So I think it depends on is she like a Carolyn type where like people are really gonna like her kind of wild personality, or are people gonna be turned off by that? And again, I don't know her well enough to determine that. But I could see her doing well. But I'm also, I'm gonna say that there's a high variance here.
Yeah, for sure. All right, 2 left.
All right, we have Sean, 35, originally from New Jersey and now lives in Utah. He's a school principal, which, again, Tommy was a school principal and he won the season.
Yeah.
Connection seeker, ambitiously minded, magnetic energy. He's been watching Survivor ever since the beginning. He's always wanted to play, never had the confidence to do it until now. He says that as a gay man, overcoming social stigma and religious expectations helped him to develop mental grit, tenacity, and resilience, which is absolutely necessary for Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
He identifies with Zeke. He imagines he'll play most like Suri and Todd. Very interesting. He says that he wants to make relationships that'll bring them further into the game, and then when they're no longer served for gameplay, vote them out. Sounds harsh, but that's the game. We could be friends after I win, I promise. He says that his pet peeves are people that are arrogant and think they're better than others, which in Survivor you're going to get players who are definitely out there and arrogant. So I'm curious to see how he handles that. He says that people, when they meet him, they make assumptions. They think that he's younger than he really is. He says there was a time when he was a high school vice principal and parents thought he was a student. So he says that people are always surprised to learn that he's accomplished in his education and career. He's goal driven. He's claims once again that his social skills will carry him to $1 million. So I'm very, very interested to see Sean's gameplay, because he seems like a lot different than a lot of people on this cast. Whereas a lot of people are kind of describing themselves as like all around type players, he's so strictly focused on social game. And I like that a lot. I think that social game is the most important, obviously. So, if he could connect with a lot of people and wait. Okay, he's 35. Never mind. I was gonna say he does look really young for 35.
Yeah.
I thought he was in his 20s for a second. Okay. Yeah, I'm curious to see how Sean is, but if his social game is as good as advertised, that is a very good thing.
You just proved his point, Dylan. Everyone thinks he's younger than he is.
Yeah. Maybe,
No.
maybe that means he'll be underestimated. I could easily see that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, Sean is somebody who definitely comes across as likable. The school principal is very interesting. Like, I don't know if you could hear that. There was a loud trash thing outside. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's all good.
Oh my god. Of course, we're almost done with the podcast. Now people are throwing out trash now at 8:52 p.m. But basically, Sean definitely comes across as likable. The school principal thing is interesting. Like Tommy, like you mentioned, I think this is a great profession for the Survivor game because you're interacting with so many different parties. You have the parents, the kids, the fellow teachers, other administrators. There's a lot of different stakeholders that are involved. And I think if you have that counselor or that school principal or the bartender or Jam Jam was the hairdresser, when you interact with a lot of different people in society, I think that does benefit you a lot in a game like Survivor, where it's a microcosm of society. You're interacting with people from all over the country. So I do feel like Sean does seem social enough for the game in the new era. I don't know how physical he is. I don't think he mentioned anything about like athletic CrossFit. He didn't mention anything like that in his bio. So I wonder how he'll do in the challenges. A little worried, like I mentioned, the yellow tribe. If your tribe is Brandon, Emily, Hannah, Sean, Sabaya, and Caleb, I don't know how well they stack up against the other two tribes. So I hope they can survive a few votes. I also wonder if, the Brandon, Emily, Hannah thing ends up working out. Do they try to pull Sean in as a fourth number, or do they target him? So I guess we'll see what happens with him. I don't know. Sean is a couple question marks to me, but I hope he does well.
Yeah, it seems like we're on a very similar page here. And last but not least, we have Sabaya, who is 28 years old, originally from Locust Grove, Georgia, now lives in North Carolina, where she is a truck driver. She describes herself as resilient, vibrant, and proud. She wants to play the game because it'll challenge her physically, mentally, emotionally, also spiritually. It's a test of will and fate. She is 4 years active duty in the U.S. Marines. Loves Cerie's heart and strategic mind. She's a legend. She hopes that she could carry the same legacy. She says that she will value a chameleon as an alliance partner. That is a very interesting answer. She needs adaptability and a level of secrecy. Trust is a given, but she'd like to align with the least suspected but most sensible. She likes playing basketball, new restaurant dates, painting. She can't stand laziness. That's her pet peeve. And an I can't attitude. She says that her dad's an immigrant, so he was born into poverty. Now he teaches engineering, has 3 degrees. And she says that she's been preparing for the show unconsciously her whole life. She says it's her destiny to be the sole survivor. I think Sabaya is one of the more intriguing people on this entire cast right now. I mean, a truck driver who is 4 years active duty in the Marines who wants to play like Cerie. I mean, there's a lot going on here. I think that when somebody who is a truck driver that is in the Marines, you don't think that they're going to play like Cerie, but I think that she seems way, way, way smarter than you may think a truck driver would be. Not to stereotype on that, by the way, because I'm not saying I know a lot about truck drivers, but I'm just saying the stereotype of the truck driver that would not be that they're very savvy, but she does seem like she's very savvy. The fact that she said that she would want to align with the least suspected but most sensible gives me a lot of hope for her game. I think that's a pretty good comment. So I'm looking forward to watching her play, and I think that she could do really well.
Yeah, I really like Sabaya. I love the truck driver profession. I mean, season 1, we had Sue Hawk, and now we have Sabaya. I feel like this is what people wanted. And I kid you not, my friend Brett said to me, like, because he's like, I'm tired of the new cast. They're all like super fans. They're all nerds. They're all this. Like, where are our truck drivers? I'm like, well, now we have a truck driver. So I think Sabaya is great. I think the Marines and her background in that is going to be very helpful to her in the game. I mean, Ben was a Marine and Ben won. And I feel like if you are in a blue-collar profession like truck driver and you were active duty Marines, people are going to trust you. People are going to think that you're a good, solid person to work with. They don't need to worry about you being flaky at all. She wants to bring people in with her Southern drawl as well, but she's going to exploit that. So I really do feel good about Sabaya. If she can channel that energy that she wants to with Cerise, heart, and strategy, I think that's going to even be better for her. She's on the Yellow Tribe, so we'll have to see if she gets in well with what I'm assuming is going to be the majority. But I really do feel like if Sabaya can get her footing early, I really feel like she's a contender. I feel like people are going to really like her.
Yeah, I have very high hopes for Sabaya. Very high hopes.
Yeah.
All right, and that'll conclude it. We went through all 18 members of the cast here. And I'm excited to watch on Wednesday, 90-minute episodes for the first time ever. So how about that?
Very excited.
Is the first episode also 90 minutes or is it 2 hours?
I'm pretty sure every episode is 90 minutes. Obviously, the finale is going to be the exception with the reunion, but I'll double check. I'm very certain that almost every single episode is 90 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought also. I was just double checking there.
Yeah.
Anyway, great to be back, Ryan. Great to be podcasting again after 4 months off. We will let everybody know when the podcast will be this week. I'm guessing that it's probably going to be next weekend because of a lot of conflicts this week. Excuse me. But excited for it. Can't wait to break it down next weekend. And excited for Wednesday.
Dylan, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the first podcast, whenever that is. And for the first time, if you are new joining us here or you are a longtime viewer, first time of the new season, we're going to say this, but as we wrap up, grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.